Good evening. The local news with Donna Traynor. The police have charged a 19-year-old man with the murder of Richard Miskelly in Newtownards yesterday morning. The 24-year-old died after being assaulted at a house on Bangor Road. The accused, who is also charged with perverting the course of justice, is due in court tomorrow. A second arrested man has been released by the police. 5 men involved in a kidnap gang who threatened to cut off the victim's fingers have been given suspended jail sentences. The man, a cattle dealer, was tied up at gunpoint in County Tyrone and held captive for 5 days in 2012. Here's our South West reporter Julian Fowler.
Paul Gogan, who is originally from County Meath, thought he was coming to see a meat factory. Instead, the cattle dealer was kidnapped at gunpoint and held in an old refrigerated shipping container at a motorsport track near Castledurg. This area is so remote, the gang couldn't get a mobile signal. They put Paul Gogan in the boot of a car and drove him towards the border to call his father Robert. He was told to pay £400,000 or his son's fingers would be chopped off. He replied, "Cut away," hung up and alerted the police. Paul Gogan was eventually released after €100,000 was left in a hedge. He was accompanied on his trip by 59-year-old Robert Vivers from Dumfries. He pleaded guilty to kidnapping, false imprisonment and blackmail. The judge said in an idiotic moment he had taken the law into his own hands to recover £200,000 he said he was owed, a debt which led to the collapse of his business and his marriage. The judge said he had sold his soul to the devil when he contacted criminals in Dublin, who in turn recruited some men from Omagh to assist in the kidnap plot. 44-year-old Patrick Noel McCall from Slevard Rise and 27-year-old Matthew McLean from Glen Park Road pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit blackmail. 22-year-old Robert McLean from Devoney Park and Martin Arkinson, who's 21, from Ballycolman Estate in Strabane, admitted assisting the blackmailers by buying food and telephone top-up cards. The judge said this was an unusual and indeed remarkable case. The victim and his family did not give evidence, and the central players in the kidnap were not before the court. The 5 who admitted their role were today given suspended sentences of between 18 months and 2.5 years. Julian Fowler, BBC Newsline at Antrim Court.
Talks on a new single transfer test for P7 children are due to start next month. The organisations who run the current 2 academic selection tests are aiming to have a common exam by November 2019. Our education correspondent Robbie Meredith reports.
For many of these P7 children at Andrews Memorial Primary in Cumber, the transfer tests have come and gone, but the memory remains.
Hard, long, took ages, and there was lots of practice papers.
We could get summer tests to keep going over the summer.
Their principal wants to see that testing system streamlined.
3 Saturdays and potentially another one if they do both tests, and then another one which is like a familiarisation day. When you've got that over the course of the autumn term in P7, that's a significant period of time. But naturally, if there was a shortened version of that and just one test, it would help everyone.
A document drawn up for the Education Minister Peter Weir, obtained by the BBC, suggests what a common test could look like. It says children could sit 3 test papers, each lasting 45 minutes. 2 papers will be in multiple choice format. The 3rd paper will contain writing and maths exercises. And the 3 papers could be taken on a single day. For a single test to happen, though, 2 significant hurdles have to be overcome. AQE charge a fee for entry to their test, PPTC don't. So who would pay for it? The tests are also very different. So what format would a common test take? And that means it's not a done deal.
There are different types of tests, they're examined across a different number of days. So there are significant differences as far as that's concerned. That still exists. And we're going to have to be very resolved and very determined if we're to overcome those things.
It is significant that the testers are getting round the same table, but it'll be November 2019 at the earliest before a single test is in place. Robbie Meredith, BBC Newsline.
A man has described how he rescued a couple from a fire in their home in Londonderry at the weekend. The man and woman are being treated in hospital. Sean McLaughlin heard a smoke alarm going off inside their house in Gallia as he was going home on Saturday night.
The man was on the bungalow, he kind of walked, so he was sitting on the bed and the flames was all around him and his wee legs was starting to take on fire and his wheelchair was just outside the room, so I managed to get him off the bed and put him on the wheelchair. I wheeled him outside the backyard and asked him, was anybody else in there? And he started shouting his partner's name, so I went back in and to be quite honest, the house had started getting a bit worse and full with black smoke and I couldn't really see her. I shouted her name and then I heard her in, a wee soft toned voice shouting out to me, help, help. And when I got in, some more yellow flames started coming up, so I got to see her again and she just asked her could she crawl towards me, and she got a wee bit over towards me and then I just managed to grab her arm and pulled her out.
The political crisis at Stormont has stalled the recruitment of a new head of the civil service here. The candidates were interviewed last year, but when the renewable heat scheme controversy blew up, the process was halted. Our business correspondent Julian O'Neill reports.
It is a key post at Stormont Castle. The head of the civil service acts as the principal policy advisor to the top two ministers. A failure to fill the job means this man, Sir Malcolm McKibben, has temporarily put off his retirement to remain in charge of more than 23,000 officials in government departments and manage a budget of £11 billion. It is a powerful position at the heart of devolution, but replacing him has been delayed, and the executive will likely require legal advice to proceed. Last November, Arlene Foster and Martin McGuinness together interviewed two shortlisted candidates. Rules were changed to allow it. They were given training in equality laws and an HR consultant sat in to ensure proper procedures were followed. The two men they interviewed were senior, experienced civil servants, David Sterling and Andrew McCormick. Both had worked with Mrs Foster when she was Minister at the Department of Enterprise, and each has accepted responsibility for failures around the RHI scheme. The BBC understands the interviews produced a winner, but as the fallout from RHI created a crisis, no appointment was made during a 7-week period before the collapse of the executive. The recruitment process stalled and is now clouded by uncertainty. Having politicised this appointment, it could now need a First and Deputy First Minister in order to complete, and no one is confident those posts will be filled quickly after the election. A further complicating factor is that Michelle O'Neill, having replaced Mr McGuinness, was not part of the interview panel. The Executive Office will not comment on what it said is still a live recruitment process. No one knows how the problem will be fixed, and it might even be an issue a London minister has to address. Julian O'Neill, BBC Newsline, Belfast.
As we approach the end of the month, the weather is set to change tomorrow. Here's the forecast with Cecilia Daly.
Hello, good evening. Another cold night coming up. Fairly clear skies around at the moment, but there is an ice warning now in force. Temperatures will fall to around freezing, maybe just below, and there will be a few showers. But showers will become more frequent during the early hours from the northwest, hitting the cold air and falling as snow in places by the end of the night, particularly over high ground. So tomorrow morning through the rush hour, there'll be a risk of ice in places, and there'll also be some wintry showers moving south. Just bear that in mind. It'll feel much colder with a gusty wind. Most of the showers falling as rain, sleet or hail at lower levels, but over the high ground there could be a couple of centimetres of snow. So you can see there's a little area of low pressure there moving southwards over parts of Scotland towards northwest England and across Northern Ireland, which will bring quite frequent showers initially. Behind it, sunnier skies over northern and central areas of Scotland. Wintry showers for much of northern England, East Anglia and South East England staying dry at least until late in the day, and the Republic of Ireland seeing some sunshine and not too many showers until late in the day either. But it will be quite cold and wintry across Northern Ireland. Gusty winds, fairly frequent showers, some sunshine at times too, particularly in the afternoon. Now that's the last day of February, the last day of winter, and as March rolls in, which is the start of meteorological spring, it's still a bit unsettled, but it won't be just as cold and wintry. On Wednesday there'll be a fair bit of dry weather through the morning, just 1 or 2 showers. Some rain though edges up from the south late in the day, and Thursday we'll see a few showers but also some dry spells.
And that's it from me. Good night.